So Russell, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into the future, can you tell us a little bit about your own backgrounds? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, Nick, great. Thanks very much for having me on this forum, on this platform. And it's really great to be talking to you again. You know, we touched base all those years before the 2010 World Cup, and here we are still, you know, a couple of decades later and going strong. So good to be in touch again. My story, my journey is quite a diverse one, and I think really that it has become a strength for me over the years. So I was born originally in Zambia, grew up in Zimbabwe, then went across to the US, had about 10 years in the US, and then back to Africa in around the late 80s, early 90s, when the changes were coming and the opportunities were there. In and amongst that, I worked in a whole lot of different various places, from Hawaii to Berlin and everything in between. And so I do consider myself something of a citizen of the world. I've got experience in a lot of different cultures, a lot of different languages, and a lot of different perspectives. And I really bring that into play now across the African continent, leading a very diverse set of people.
And Russell, can you tell us, what was your dream career when you grew up?
Interestingly enough, my earliest aspirations, you know, when we're kids, we all think we're going to be astronauts or something. And two of my interesting ones I never ended up pursuing, but they still remain of interest to me today. I thought about being a geologist, so I enjoy rocks and geography. And I thought about being a veterinarian, and still to this day, I enjoy animals. But really, I think it was in my high school years and university years that I realized it's money that makes the world go round. And so I pursued both qualifications and a career, broadly speaking, in finance and financial services.
And who inspired you in your early days?
I can quite confidently say that it was my grandfather. My grandfather was of Afrikaans descent, and you know, he had a pioneering spirit about him, but he was always very good with people and very good with us as grandchildren. And but at the same time, you were left with no uncertainty about his discipline, his self-discipline. You were left with no uncertainty about what he expected from others, because he gave 110% to everything. And he did all sorts of interesting things like construction, farming, mining. He even had a go at Mount Kilimanjaro. So he taught me a lot.
Now, today, Russell, you are, and you have been in charge of the Durban Investment Promotion Authority for many, many years. You're a board member of the Chamber of Commerce in Durban. You've been serving on boards for the UN, the World Bank, and a whole number of prestigious institutions. Now, I believe you started your career in banking. Is that right?
Well, it just depends when you do the start, Nick. You know, in America, you can start working quite young. So I developed a work ethic. I think my first job was when I was about 13 or 14 years old. We were delivering marketing pamphlets in various neighborhoods. We would get picked up at about 4:30 in the morning and work until 5, 6 o'clock at night. But I guess the more adult career started as a management trainee with a fund management company in America called First Investors. And then when I came to South Africa, I was with the FNB corporate banking and then Nedbank corporate banking for 15 years.
And in your role as the head of Durban Invest, Russell, obviously KZN is leading the country in many regards, and I believe I just saw tourism that KZN is the one that is rebounding the fastest from COVID. Can you give us maybe a couple of highlights from your Durban Invest time, and also an outlook? What can we expect in the future from Durban and from KZN?
Thanks, Nick. To take a couple of steps back, I don't know if I properly answered your earlier question, the turning point. I think the turning point for me was that transition from pure private sector into public sector and public sector partnerships. So that occurred around 2003. And I confess, much like many people in pure commerce and industry, you don't think much about government. You don't think much about your metropolitan administration. As long as the lights work and the water comes out the taps, you just carry on. And so the turning point for me came really in that transition. And I've been able to keep one foot in business all along, and then have one foot firmly helping to administer government. And so we have achieved a number of things, and thank you for those observations. The city of Durban has won a number of accolades over a number of years now, and we like to think we've added our shoulder to that wheel. I think a fair amount of it, though, Nick, is we have to give credit to our natural endowments. We have to give credit to the legacy of those who went before us. Because we stand on the shoulders of what God gave us, and we stand on the shoulders of what others have done before us. So being a metropolitan coastal port city, if you look at metropolitan port cities around the world, you have that endowment, and it becomes a major part of the engine of the economy. Likewise, our infrastructure. We have, according to the TomTom traffic index, we've got the least congested and best road network in South Africa. Likewise on water, on power, on fiber optics. So it's not all just about what we've done recently. Our natural endowments are playing in our favor. Tourism, beaches, 300 days of sunshine, temperate climates, very diverse population. So we draw on the strengths of the Black African cultures. We draw on the strengths of the Indian cultures. We draw on the strengths of the European cultures. And so all of these things are coming together to help us perform economically higher than the national average growth rates. And it's relative also to the spread of our economy. We are not predicated on just one sector, for example, like mining and nothing else. We have a great spread across primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. So all of these things really are coming together to help us bootstrap, if I can use a financial term, to get us out of the economic doldrums that have plagued us during COVID.
And if I remember correctly, Russell, during 2010, the FIFA World Cup, you played a leading role in the city team. And I believe Durban hosted obviously a number of games, including the semi-final Uruguay versus Netherlands. So maybe if you can tell us what was your best moment, your best memory from 2010.
Yeah, Nick, I was responsible for the economic development and business opportunities work stream in the host city team. And it was that, like the novel, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. Because we had never done something like this before. And when you're pioneering, it often feels like you have a panga in your hand and you are headed in the right direction through the forest, but you have to craft your own path along the way and make sure you don't kill any team members or kill anyone else along the way. Make sure you're building relationships along the way. So, we had to do so many different things. We had a number of work streams, the stadium construction work stream. We built our stadium from scratch in record time to award-winning architectural designs, and it's still part of the skyline of Durban now, the Moses Mabhida Stadium, with its arch across the top, a whole new beachfront, upgrading our transport system, which that legacy effect is still happening right through to today on our transport system.
Right.
And the dealing with international teams, dealing with FIFA, dealing with the industry bodies. It was a very busy and vibrant time. I must be honest, my best point, my highlight, was when I was able to take my then, I think he was about 12-year-old son, to a different game. It was the Portugal game, I think it was Portugal-Nigeria, because my son at the time was a Cristiano Ronaldo fan. And so we painted our faces in Portugal colors, and we painted our hair, and we went there with our vuvuzelas backing Portugal.
And Russell, can you tell us what is driving you today?
I think the same thing that's driving me today is what's been driving me for the last 20, 25 odd years, Nick, and that is the desire that we have to make a difference. I know that sounds cliched, I know that sounds easy off the tongue, but working in the nexus of government and business and international investors on the African continent, it's not an easy space. And so your motivation for doing anything has to be quite a deep-seated motivation. And so I'm driven to make a difference for my children and my grandchildren. And I'm driven to make a difference also for the children and grandchildren over the hill in some of our poorest townships. We absolutely cannot have a planet where we have ever-increasing towers of prosperity surrounded by seas of poverty. And so I buy into what we've always done at quite a personal level, if not emotional level, to be sure that we're making a significant and meaningful impact for the next generations.
Now, Russell, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
I think most especially during these, I'm going to use a positive, constructive, if not prophetic term, and say post-pandemic.
Yeah.
The future, I think, is a lot more around heartfelt partnerships and leading with a servant-hearted approach. You know, this issue of, or this topic of servant-hearted leadership, yes, it's been around, but I think if we're honest, we need more practitioners in servant-hearted leadership. And so that future has already started to pull us all a lot closer together into these heartfelt partnerships. Let's not waste a good crisis. None of our balance sheets, our cash flows, our resources are what they were a year ago. And so none of us can do it on our own. So the future of leadership for me is a lot more heartfelt partnerships delivered with servant-hearted leadership, where I'm trying to help you more than what I'm trying to extract out of you.
And Russell, what have you learned from your own journey that you consider most important for building future leaders? In other words, what do we have to do to build the next generation of leaders?
It's a difficult journey, I think, for everyone. And it starts for me, I think, with identity. I don't know if many people see themselves as leaders. I don't know if many people aspire to be leaders. I don't know if many people think they will ever be leaders. And I think that is all 100% wrong. Leadership for me and for everyone on the planet starts at a very personal, individual level. And what I've learned in my journey is what I try and tell other people, and that is, from the day you become an adult, from the day you become qualified, you are a leader. You're leading yourself. You have an opportunity to lead in your social circle with friends. You have an opportunity to lead by example. You have an opportunity, once you're married with family, to lead your family, and so on into business. And so I try to demystify or take the mystique out of this term leader and say that each of us, in our own spheres, in our own contexts, even if you have an entry-level job, you are leading, make no mistake. And you need to develop that self-leadership and, over time, the ability to lead others.
And Russell, what is it you tell aspiring leaders about social media? How should they handle social media to build their own leadership brands?
Nick, you know, social media is a double-edged sword, I think, as everyone knows. And like everything in life, excess is not good. Everything in moderation. So aspiring leaders need to, especially those that have been, to use the term, born digital, need to be exceptionally aware of their usage of social media and what they're saying on social media, and the paradigms and persona that they're creating and perpetuating on social media. Too many people think they can type what they want or send photos of what they want without consequence, because it's easy. You're just standing behind your own piece of glass, and there are theoretically or conceptually no consequences. That's absolutely false. Many companies nowadays are tracking your social media. There's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, and the personal brand and personal persona that you put out there is absolutely essential. So we're seeing it come through in many schools nowadays and in the universities, where they're taking a much more disciplined approach to this, but yet so many people get it wrong. So many people feel like there is a disconnect between my social media versus my business future or my career future. They're not disconnected. You do not have a separate life on social media, and you can say what you want and do what you want and think it is disconnected from your future opportunities, your future careers, your future leadership platforms. So it's around being wise. It's around being discreet. It's around being I'll use a quirky term, be the person your dog thinks you are.
I take it you've got dogs, Russell?
Well, you've heard me say I'm an animal lover. I have multiple animals.
Great, great, great. All right, so what would your advice be for future leaders? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter in their career?
You know, there's unquestionably a scarcity out there. And there's, particularly in an African context, the competition for jobs, the competition for promotion, the competition for business opportunities. And so I guess the first recommendation is, whilst not being, how can I say, defeatist or fatalistic, just temper your expectations. I think people who are blessed to go to university, and maybe those who can even get an honors degree or master's degree and so on, a culture of entitlement is unhelpful to you personally. So don't think the world owes you lots of things. Don't think the company owes you lots of things. Right. Don't think your qualifications automatically entitle you to all sorts of things. So temper your expectations and position yourself to build relationships rather. In this disconnected world, this COVID environment, virus aside, health issues aside, I think it's been one of the greatest assaults on mental resilience. It's been one of the greatest assaults on personal relationships. And that's likely to continue. So we need to accept those challenges and keep ourselves mentally resilient, keep ourselves emotionally balanced, and try to continue to build relationships at every turn, even if they're virtual over a screen.
And Russell, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are some of the new skills you would want to factor in?
I think there's a sweet spot, Nick, in the nexus of traditional skills and qualifications, which perhaps ordinarily used to stay apart. What I'm talking about is this nexus of what you might call hard skills and soft skills. So strange and interesting combinations like industrial psychology and quantitative mathematics, engineering and architecture, communication and accountancy. So this nexus, this meeting point of hard skills and soft skills coming together, and then wrapping them all with increasing digital literacy and digital fluency. You may be a doctor, but you had better know a lot about systems thinking, and then also the technologies available in the health sphere. You may be a media broadcaster, but you would do well to know the intricacies of customer relationship management platforms on the internet. So it's a nexus of skills, hard, soft, and wrap them in digital.
Very interesting. So we all need new combinations of success.
Absolutely. And that creates opportunity. So even if a leader is in mid-career and they've been a chartered accountant or an engineer or so on, now's the opportunity with all this online learning available, some free, some paid, to shore up on the what I'd call complementary skills. Some might scoff and laugh and call them contra-intuitive skills.
Right. Now, Russell, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
I think of the structure that is in South Africa of learnerships and internships. And these learnerships and internships have tried for many years to place young people, some with qualifications, some not, into various organizations in public sector and private sector. And so we have, as an aside, it's also a great way for organizations to get additional hands on deck without necessarily the enormous cost of hiring a person and paying them and them being a permanent employee. But that's an aside. So it was one of my executive assistants. She came through an internship learnership program, and through that daily interaction, it was wonderful to see her become almost like my right-hand person. And that actually is the ideal of an executive assistant. Gone are the days where you're just a secretary and that's it. Absolute rubbish. And a PA, an executive assistant, can become almost the 2IC of the company. And so I shared a lot of strategy, a lot of budget and finance, a lot of the implementation elements with her so that she could run alongside me and keep pace with me and even take some of the responsibilities off me. And she left our business on a high to go and start her own businesses and work in other family businesses. There was another one with the person who still currently runs our marketing. She came through fresh out of qualification, and through observation, through mentoring, she to this day is an absolute star and has gone on to increase her own personal qualifications.
Well, Russell, looking back over your career and maybe even over your learning journey, who are the role models of leadership that you would advise future leaders to learn and maybe take a leaf from?
Nick, again, I like to take a smorgasbord approach. You know, still to this day, you know, you and me had exposure to the then President Nelson Mandela, and unquestionably, I think for all of us who had some exposure to his leadership, he was the consummate transformational leader, able to be humble, to present himself to a wide variety of cultures and audiences, and to get the best out of people and the most out of people and draw very diverse groups together through servant-hearted leadership. So he is definitely, I think, one of many of our role models around the world. The other is closer to home for me. When I was at Nedbank Corporate Banking, the provincial executive across all of the brands and divisions was a gentleman called Henk Leenstra. Henk unfortunately passed away during COVID, and it was a very difficult moment for me and his family because I couldn't go to his funeral. This was during hard lockdown still.
Right.
But I had the opportunity of working for Henk and working underneath him. And the reason why he was so inspiring to me, such a role model of leadership, is he never lost his focus and he never lost his composure. And he had an unbelievable work ethic and level of energy. So these are my two role models.
Thank you. And Russell, how can our listeners connect with you and where should they follow you?
Well, I must confess, I'm not a big social media poster and broadcaster, but I am on LinkedIn. So you will find me on LinkedIn. I confess I don't post a lot on there. I wasn't born digital, so I don't immerse myself personally in Twitter and Facebook. But LinkedIn I'm on. Our website is just quite a simple one. It's invest.durban.
Yeah.
So Invest Durban, you could follow us organizationally. So Invest Durban does post on social media through our team, and I do feed a lot of content through that medium. So you can follow us on social media through Invest Durban.
And last but not least, Russell, is there one piece of advice that you would like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own personal leadership?
Absolutely. It's persistence, persistence, persistence. You know, whilst he may have lacked, you know, if you see this movie of Ray Kroc and the founding of McDonald's, if you believe the way that movie panned out, and I fully understand there's always two sides to every story. So you can say he maybe lost his ethics and governance a little bit when success went to his head. But he started with this thing of persistence, persistence, persistence. Now, I didn't learn from him. I'm not taking it from him. It's what I've always done ever since I started working at 13 and 14. And our little in-house mantra of our Invest Durban team, we've adapted those P's. We try to be pleasantly persistent, but there's another two P's, to the point of being painful.
Okay. Three
so
P's.
Be pleasantly persistent,
Yeah.
but if you need to, it can sometimes be to the point of being painful.
So P3.
So it's about persisting, persisting, persisting. You know, again, there's another famous quote of another famous South African who, you know, people could take him as role models. Gary Player, golfer.
Right.
You know, he said, it's quite amazing, you know, the more I practice, the luckier I get.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I think the difference between people who succeed and don't, people who achieve and don't, people who rise up through organizations and don't, it's not necessarily about, are you the smartest? Have you got the best qualifications? Do you have the best friendship with your bosses? I think it's a lot to do with the person that keeps their head down, keeps their focus on, keeps their traction, and just push through, push through, push through, push through, push through, and do not stop, whilst at the same time maintaining your relationships and get the job done.
Well, Russell, you're certainly testimony to this, and if I may say, it seems to even show in your physical appearance. You haven't changed a bit since 2010. So maybe one day you can share the secret.
I steal my wife's face cream every second morning.
There we go. So Russell, thank you so much for making time to share your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and reminding us that persistence, focus, and a new nexus of skills are key to leading in this new world.
Nick, it was our great pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, and I wish you all the very best, and I hope there can be some benefit and inspiration to those that watch and listen.